Next week on Weatherfield Street, Jenny keeps her fortune a secret from Daisy. Sparks fly for Todd in the love department. Sean's jail scheme takes a wrong turn. And who did Rob end up shooting? Who gets shot in Rob's final showdown? Tracy found herself in a dangerous predicament as the week wrapped up, with fugitive ex-boyfriend Rob holding her at gunpoint inside number one's living room. Rob had been on the run ever since breaking out of the hospital, where he had undergone surgery to donate a kidney to his sister. His troubles worsened after being shoved down a staircase by his sibling, retaliation for having her abducted by a corrupt officer, leaving him battered and in even worse shape. Now, weeks later, Rob is struggling but determined to flee the country. He has already persuaded Tracy to sneak out to retrieve a forged passport from one of his contacts. As events unfold at number one, Rob demands that Tracy call his sister and lure her over under the pretense of a business deal. When she arrives, completely unaware, she is shocked to find Rob barely able to stand, racked with pain, and armed with a gun. Is Rob out for revenge against his sister, or is this just a desperate farewell before he vanishes, dragging Tracy along with him? It isn't long before word spreads to Lisa that a hostage crisis is unfolding at number one, and she wastes no time rushing over, determined to prevent Carla from getting hurt. Slipping in through the back door, Lisa tries to reason with Rob, reminding him that harming a hostage will only extend his prison time. Unmoved, Rob orders her to lock the door and sit beside Carla on the sofa. But what exactly is he planning? Moments later, a gunshot shatters the tense silence. But who has been hit? Later, anxious loved ones gather at the hospital, waiting for any updates on the victim's condition. Has Rob claimed another life? A new love for Todd? Could love be in the air for Todd as a striking new face crosses his path? Determined to make his terminally ill Aunt Julie's final days as enjoyable as possible, Todd arranges for his mum, Eileen, to take her out for a night of cocktails in town. Dressed to impress, Julie makes the bold decision to skip her medication for the evening. Later, as she and Eileen make their way down Victoria Street towards the tram stop, Julie is suddenly hit with a sharp pain and leans against the wall outside Victoria Court, right beside a construction site. In a shocking moment, a piece of scaffolding comes loose and crashes down, narrowly missing her. The site manager, Theo, rushes over to apologize but quickly dismisses Julie's distress, suspecting she's exaggerating. When George overhears and sets the record straight about Julie's condition, Theo is left deeply embarrassed. Just then, Todd arrives on the scene, and he can't help but take notice of Theo. He's definitely drawn to him, Gareth Pierce revealed in a recent press call. Theo's got that rugged, confident vibe, dressed in his work gear. Todd doesn't know the difference between a scaffolder and a builder, but there's definitely a spark. But things take an interesting turn when Theo, realizing his mistake, decides to make amends by picking up flowers for Julie as a gesture of apology. Todd, ever the charmer, seizes the moment, playfully guiding Theo to Preston's petals. There's a natural back and forth between them, filled with humor and a hint of connection, but Todd still isn't sure if there's anything more to it. The banter starts to shift, Gareth explains. It flirts with becoming something more, but Todd is left wondering if he's just imagining it. When Todd finally tries to clarify whether their meetup is a date, Theo suddenly clams up and makes a swift exit, leaving Todd deflated. Seeing her nephew's disappointment, Julie hatches a cheeky plan. She claims number 11 has a leaky roof and arranges for Theo to stop by later, ensuring that Todd is the only one home. When Theo arrives, it doesn't take long for both men to realize they've been set up. Unfortunately, Theo doesn't take the situation well. Irritated, he bluntly tells Todd he's not gay and asks him and his meddling aunt to stay out of his business. That moment is crushing for Todd, Gareth admits. He's finally putting himself out there, and suddenly he's left feeling completely humiliated. It's like, Julie, what were you thinking? Determined to move on, Todd pulls out his dating app and starts swiping. But just when he's ready to forget the whole thing, he's stunned to see a familiar face. Theo's profile staring back at him. Well, that certainly settles it, Gareth teases. Todd wasn't imagining things. There's a wave of relief. He wasn't just reading into nothing. While the app confirms Theo isn't as straight as he claimed, their real-world connection makes things all the more intriguing. Could this be the start of something after all? Jenny hides a secret from Daisy. At the Rovers, Jenny gets an unexpected financial boost when she learns that her ex-husband, Daisy's father, had secretly invested shares in her name years ago. With a hefty £60,000 soon landing in her account, Jenny decides to celebrate by treating Rita to a luxury spa voucher. Meanwhile, Daisy is still panicking about repaying the money they swindled from Carla. She and Jenny had planned to settle the debt using funds from Daniel, who had sneakily withdrawn cash from his son Bertie's trust fund to buy into the Rovers. But things took a chaotic turn when Shona got involved, blackmailing Daisy and snatching the money to pay off Harvey, the dangerous local criminal, after David stole from him. Keeping up? With Carla still a looming threat, ready to report them if they don't come up with the cash soon, Jenny makes the choice to stay silent about her financial windfall. After Rita turns down the spa voucher, Jenny passes it along to Daisy, pretending it's just a thoughtful gift to lift her spirits. While Daisy is genuinely touched, Jenny can't shake the guilt. However, that guilt may soon skyrocket because Daisy soon learns about Jenny's sudden influx of cash from another source. Instead of confronting her outright, she decides to wait and see just how long it takes for Jenny to fess up, if she ever does. Eventually, Jenny tries to make things right by offering Carla the $60,000 as partial repayment. But Carla isn't impressed. Rather than accepting the lump sum, she tells Jenny to march straight to the bank and take out a loan to clear the entire debt in one go. Now, Jenny is left with a big decision: stick with her offer or risk everything to settle the score once and for all. Steve and Cassie make up. Meanwhile, Cassie finally gets a bit of good news when Steve decides to let bygones be bygones over the recent Ken fiasco. Steve had been just as furious as the rest of the Barlow clan after discovering Cassie had been secretly drugging Ken's tea and splurging on his credit card. But to Cassie's surprise, Steve softens his stance, admitting he may have been too harsh. Wanting to make amends, he invites her over for a cuppa while he's house-sitting at number 4 for Sally and Tim. Before long, the chemistry between them is back in full force, and as the mood heats up, Cassie throws out a cheeky suggestion. Why not take a dip in Sally and Tim's treasured hot tub, minus the swimsuits? Bertie's in grave danger. While Jenny is looking after Bertie, she gets momentarily distracted by an urgent call from the bank. In those few crucial moments, Bertie vanishes. Panicked, Jenny dashes outside, searching the street, completely unaware that the 6-year-old has wandered into the back garden of number 4 while chasing his football. Spotting the ball floating in the empty hot tub, Bertie climbs in to retrieve it. Just as Steve and Cassie step outside ready for their cheeky late-night dip, they're left frozen in horror. Bertie is in the water. Thankfully, they reach him just in time and pull him to safety before anything tragic can happen. A shaken Steve wastes no time alerting Jenny, who sprints into number 4, her heart pounding. Daisy, furious and terrified, doesn't hold back as she scolds Jenny for her carelessness. As they rush Bertie to the hospital, she makes a harsh but painful reminder. This isn't the first time. Jenny's mind flashes back to the unthinkable loss of her own infant son, Tom, who drowned in a paddling pool in 2013. Now the question remains, will Bertie be okay? Debbie accuses Mick. Elsewhere, Mick refuses to let things slide as he continues hounding Debbie over an outstanding invoice. After being called out to the Chariot Square Hotel to deal with a power cut, Mick informed Debbie that the outage was scheduled in advance and that she should have received an email notification from the energy provider. Debbie, however, insisted she never got any such email and was outraged when Mick hit her with a £300 call-out fee. Unwilling to pay the full amount, she begrudgingly handed over £150, but next week Mick isn't letting it go. He presents her with an invoice for the remaining balance, only for Debbie to flat out refuse, making it clear she has no plans to cough up another penny. Tensions escalate further when Debbie later discovers her purse is missing. Jumping to conclusions, she immediately points the finger at Mick, accusing him of stealing it. As Ronnie steps in and squares up to Mick, things are looking dangerously close to boiling over. Is a showdown about to erupt? Is Dee Dee going into early labor? Next week, Dee Dee finds herself grappling with uncertainty after meeting the prospective adoptive parents for her unborn baby. In recent episodes, Dee Dee's brother, James, visited the street and asked her to consider letting him and his partner, Danny, adopt the child. Dee Dee was taken aback by the idea of keeping the baby within the family, especially given her desire to distance herself from the child of her former fiancé, Joel, who was tragically killed the previous year. Confiding in Sarah, Dee Dee admits she hasn't been able to sleep, overwhelmed with doubt about whether she's making the right choice for her baby. She's unsure about the couple she met, feeling that they might not be the right fit. Sarah reassures Dee Dee, suggesting that James and Danny, a loving couple, could offer the stability and love the baby needs. But will Dee Dee be open to the idea? Later in the week, Dee Dee agrees to meet James for lunch, but is suddenly struck by severe abdominal pain. As she suffers through another contraction, James rushes her to Weatherfield General. Relieved to learn from the midwife that she's only experiencing Braxton Hicks contractions, false labor pains, Dee Dee is reassured that there's no immediate danger to the baby. When she catches up with James later, he opens up about how he and Danny had once come close to adopting a little boy, only to have their hopes dashed when the adoption fell through. Hearing her brother's emotional story forces Dee Dee to reconsider her own baby's future. Could this new perspective change her mind?